The Michigan Man Podcast, episode 175. The final bye week of the season is here, and preparation for the Spartans and a rugged November schedule is underway. That and more on this week's show.
Oh man, Euchre's been broadcasting for 27 years. I have never seen anything like this. They need 2 inches. Dennis Franklin, the quarterback, taking a long count from center. He hands off to Shuttlesworth 5, and it's down to the end zone. Touchdown! Touchdown, Dennis Franklin! Oh my God, Dennis Franklin fooled everybody. He fooled me. He fooled the entire Ohio State team. Kneeling is Larry Gustafson. Attempting will be Super Toe. Super Toe will kick the 30-yard field goal. It's kicked to send over there. It's a tied-up ball game. 10-10. Okay. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Carter hands up. Carter's there. Oh my God! Carter scores! Look at those Wolverines. 95 Wolverines going in the end zone. Carter got the pass in the air. It's done. Buford is going out of his mind. I have never seen anything like this in all my 40 years of covering Michigan football.
This is the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Well, Saturday's game against Indiana was an offensive spectacle, but offensive if you're Coach Greg Madison and the defense. The Michigan offense did what you expected they would and much more, of course, in a record-setting day against the worst defense in the Big Ten, maybe even college football. On our bye-week edition of the show, we'll be joined shortly by Michigan great Greg Skrepenak. Greg and I discussed the IU game, but also talked about the young offensive line and what's been going on up the middle this year. I think you'll find what Greg had to say very interesting, so please stick around for that on Michigan Game Day in just a minute or two. First, let's get started as we always do with my view from Section 17. The good on Saturday. It was a win. For we longtime observers of Michigan football, Saturday's win over Indiana was exciting, but at the same time very difficult to watch. The offense, which has struggled for consistency this year, exploded. Devin Gardner was spectacular and didn't throw any picks. Jeremy Gallon looked like the invisible man running around in the secondary. No one covered him all day, and he made the Hoosiers pay in an NCAA record-setting day. A great individual performance from Jeremy Gallon. The latest version of the offensive line played very well, and Fitz had some nice holes to pop through for a change, even if it was Indiana's defense. The offensive performance was impressive. Defense was another matter. I don't think I've seen a Wolverine defense gashed like that since the Oregon game about 7 years ago. It was painful for me to watch, and I had the feeling from the get-go there was no way we could stop this IU offense. Coach Hoke said on Monday that the effort was there, players were where they were supposed to be much of the time, but they simply did not make plays, over and over. So I'm not sure what you learned from an effort like that one. It might be a game where Coach Madison spends some time on corrections and then tosses the game film in the trash. I'm just glad we hung on and moved on to this bye week at 6-1, a precarious 6-1 at that. Michigan great Greg Skrepenak is my guest on our Michigan Game Day segment this week. We covered a lot of ground during the interview, from his thoughts on the IU game to what he really thinks is going on with our young interior offensive linemen, and a lot of other good stuff. So please stay with us for that here on the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. Back with us on Michigan Game Day, our bye-week edition, Michigan great Greg Skrepenak. Greg, great to have you back on the show.
Mike, thank you very much. It's good to be back.
Well, Saturday was a big one for the Wolverines, a bounce-back game after the Penn State game. And, of course, Greg, records were shattered on Saturday, probably records we never thought we'd see broken in that 63-47 win over Indiana. What did you think of that game?
Well, bottom line is a win is a win is a win, and that's the most important thing. They came out, they won, they made some plays. I know defensively it didn't go as we would like to have seen, but towards the end of the game they made plays to where we set up the offense to win late. And so from that perspective, it's all that really matters. Offensively, you just got to say to yourself, okay, where has this been all year? And so hopefully they'll continue the offensive dominance that they had yesterday and hopefully shore up their defense.
Well, Greg, heading into Saturday, for the most part, the defense has been pretty good this year. And we thought with Coach Madison, it's just going to keep getting better and better. Do you think Saturday was, a giant step backward, or do you think that Indiana's offense is really that good and that tough to stop?
No, I don't think it was a step backwards. I've heard some critics now come out and say, what's going on with the defense and such. But let me go back to a week before against Penn State. In the last 50 seconds of the game, I don't think that the defense played poorly. I just think that the Penn State receivers made some unbelievable plays. Michigan defenders were in the position. They just didn't make the plays. And in that instance, you got to take your hats off. I think much of the same happened yesterday, where especially some of our DBs were in good position, and they didn't make plays. And so you got to realize that they're young, and they're learning on the go, and that pace was hectic. And any offense, any defensive football team will have problems with that offense. And for whatever the reason, Indiana did have it clicking yesterday.
Well, they sure did. It became apparent from the get-go that this offense was going to give the defense problems. So, when you're watching that game from a defensive coordinator's perspective, what do you actually do to make adjustments to slow that kind of an offense down?
Well, it's very difficult because it's happening so fast. You can't really make those adjustments. Greg Madison did try to put some extra, different personnel in, and at times that wasn't working. He tried to get a rush here and there. That wasn't working. And again, when you have your players put in position, and that's the coach's job to get your players in position, and they don't make plays, there is absolutely nothing you can do in that instance. And you know what? Indiana players, some of them are on scholarship too. It's a very difficult thing to adjust for, especially when not many teams in the conference run that kind of offense.
No, and it's virtually impossible to get pressure on the quarterback as fast as they get rid of it too, isn't it?
It gives you a headache, and it's just frustrating because you can't get the pressure, because Greg Madison wants to try to get a four-man rush that rush the quarterback. This way he puts 7 in coverage. You can do so much more with that. And even when he did try to develop some pressure, give Indiana quarterbacks credit, they got the ball out quick, and the receivers made plays.
Well, on the offensive side, as we mentioned, Greg and all saw yesterday, it was just an incredible explosion. And as you said, where's that been lately? But, the offense has struggled with trying to get a consistent running game going with someone other than Devin Gardner so far this year. Has that surprised you to this point?
Very much so. I thought maybe the Fitztoussaint was going to have one of those years. And I think really quietly he's demonstrated that the potential is there. But it just has been inconsistent. And the good news out of everything yesterday, even with Devin Gardner breaking records, with Jeremy Gallen breaking records, and all the big plays, Fitztoussaint had a solid game, 32 carries, 151 yards, 4 touchdowns, and that was probably the most impressive thing to me, because the offensive line played well, they protected well, and in the end, they did their job up front in the running game as well. So that is the good news. Certainly a lot to be improved upon, but not a bad start to get things going here the second half of the season.
No, you're right. A lot of good news there. Well, Greg, before the CMU opener, I should say, you were on with me, and we discussed the fact that it was going to take time for that young interior to get it going. And we talked about the fact that, all players don't always progress at the same pace. What has surprised you about the struggles to find the right combination at the guards in the center this year?
Well, I think that surprises me the most is that Coach Hoke and Al Borges have been trying to find those people up front that try to fit in, and even pulling one guy in, pulling one guy out, doing this, doing that, even to the point where they've taken Taylor Lewan and played him next to Schofield to try to improve the running game. I think that they haven't found that combination yet is probably the most shocking thing to me right now. However, there are some good signs. The younger players played a little better yesterday. They got after it. At the end of the day, offensive line play is about one thing. It's about attitude, and you have to have a great attitude. Go out there. Don't worry about what happened last play or last week. The most important play becomes the next play, and go out there and say to yourself, I'm going to do my job, and I'm going to trust the person next to me to get his job done, and we're going to do this together and get it done. And so it's kind of been a slow progression, but this week, the good news, like I said, is that it finally started to click a little bit. I think the lights started to go on, and they had to juggle again because the lineup that they set this week was disrupted with a little injury, so they had to put in, a freshman. And so it's tough. It's tough. And Mike, let me tell you this. It's not easy to adjust to play offensive line coming out of high school. It is probably the most difficult position to adjust to. Outside of quarterback, there's more asked of you to learn on the offensive line. And so it's not that easy. And what I see is that a lot of guys up front are thinking too much and not reacting. And when that happens, you're second off, and that'll destroy your run game right there in itself.
Do you think this season we've expected too much too soon from some of these young guys?
Mike, it's a tough question because this is Michigan, and we have high expectations. And where other schools may feel that pressure, at Michigan, we just accept that. That's our way. We expect to win, and that's the bottom line. And so when we stumbled here the last few years prior to Brady, then it's a big deal to us because that's not what we're used to. The fact of the matter is I think we got spoiled Brady Hoke's first year when we went 10-2 when we won the Sugar Bowl. And that was probably a shock to me because, quite frankly, defensively at least, I thought we had a better defensive team last year than when we did win the Sugar Bowl. So I think we got spoiled out of the gate, and I think, in a sense, it is a little bit unrealistic to ask so much of young players. And I'll put it in this perspective. Any other time, really, during Michigan, the Michigan football history, if you had to play a freshman or a redshirt freshman, you played one or two here or there. There are so many younger players on the field at once. They don't have the experience, therefore, they really can't rely on each other to pull yourself through because they don't know. So they're all there at once. They're all trying to find their way, and they're all in the same situation. So it's even more difficult. So I'm never going to say that we expect too much because that's just Michigan's way. But you have to be realistic at times, and you can see why they've struggled at times because of that youth.
Our guest here on our Michigan Game Day segment, our bye-week edition, is Michigan great Greg Skrepenak, and we're talking about the Indiana game this past weekend and where this team is right now as we head down that final stretch of 5 very tough games in November. Greg, I know Coach Hoke doesn't want to be a spread team. He said that again Monday at his presser. But from a production perspective, this offense and its quarterback, Devin Gardner, seem to be more comfortable with that style right now, don't they?
Absolutely. And while you don't want to be one thing, you have to do what works. Now, Devin Gardner, for instance, I think he falls into the same trap as some of our younger players do, where he's thinking too much. And when you put him in a spread offense and you put him in a shotgun, he doesn't have to do that initial assessment. He can get right to his reads very quickly and start to get into play rather than as he's going back, think about 3, 5, 7-step drops, thinking about what his protection is going to do, thinking what's happening all this other time. He can immediately get into that and start his progression, and everything happens sooner. And I think that'll help him. My problem with Devin at times is I think he is so comfortable with Jeremy Gallen. They have such a great chemistry that he looks at him, a lot. He doesn't look off. He looks in his direction all the time. And sometimes that gets himself in trouble where the one thing, if you look especially offensively yesterday, I think only 4 different receivers caught balls. And that would be a concern of mine going into this Michigan State game because Michigan State's going to take away some of the better players that you have. That's just the way it's going to happen. So someone's going to have to come to the forefront, and probably someone that we haven't seen really much of this past year that's going to have a chance and a golden opportunity to bring himself into Michigan lore, if you will, because this is Michigan State and this is the way it is. So I hope that happens. But it's something those, Mike, that you have to do just because you've been successful doing it.
Well, one of those other guys that could step up and is really starting to look good, and he's being used in the slot out wide, and what a weapon he could be, is Devin Funchess.
Devin Funchess is, for lack of a better term, a beast. He's one of those hybrid players that could play tight end. He could play receiver. He probably has the speed of a receiver, but he has the size of a tight end. And he gives matchup problems to every defense out there. And he'll be one of these pro players that are going to do great and extraordinary things, in my opinion. But in the interim, while he's in college, he's just starting to find his way now. And actually, guys like Gallen and Funchess should be used one off the other. And it's great to have that two-pronged attack, because if we become one-dimensional, that's where defenses will have the edge up. We have to be able to get the ball to different receivers. I mean, Rugilio, who I think is a good receiver, didn't have a catch yesterday, and that surprised me. I don't know if he was hurt. I didn't really see him on the field that often, but you got to have people step up. And quite frankly, I like to see us throw the ball more to our backs out of the backfield. And make no mistake about it, too. Devin Gardner is he's truly a double threat. He can run the football and he can throw the football, but he needs one to do the other. He just can't do one. He can't be one-dimensional, and he has to have all those different options. So hopefully he'll understand that he has to spread the ball around and get it to different guys. But like I said, yesterday we had the passing game going, we had the running game going, the quarterback had a big game, receivers had a big game, and our tailback had a big game. So hopefully we have something to build on right there.
Well, we're heading into the last bye week before the final 5 games. Very tough stretch. What do you see, Greg, as the biggest areas of concern for the team, and can they be fixed in the coming weeks?
Well, the immediate concern as of yesterday was defensively. You're not going to beat a defense. You're not going to beat a Michigan State team or a Nebraska or an Ohio State team by giving up 47 points. It's just not going to happen. And so you have to be concerned. But the good news, as we've been talking about, is they're not out of position. Now I just got to be making plays. So that's very, very capable of happening. Offensively, we just got to keep up with what we've improved on this week. We got to be willing to spread it. The coaches have to be willing to spread it. And offensive-wise, we have to be still committed to the run. At the same time, there's no reason that we can't throw some quick passes in there that almost replaces a run. So I think everything is right there in front for us. I think everything is right there for our taking. But I guess the biggest concern I have right now is in special teams, and unfortunately, we had another missed field goal yesterday, and I know he's struggling right now, and so hopefully we'll get that taken care of, because Brendan Gibbons has been nothing but consistent up until the Penn State game, and now he's hit a skid where his confidence shot. You don't think he's getting the ball up fast enough in his kicks, and that's a psychological thing. So in a game like Michigan State, that would be my biggest concern.
Well, after the bye week, Greg, it's on to East Lansing, and, maybe the best defense in the country, maybe. Certainly the best in the Big Ten that we've seen so far this year. What's your early read on that game?
They are definitely one of the best defenses in the nation, bar none. You hear before any talk show and about college football, and everyone talks about Michigan State defense being a very good defense. So our offense is going to have its hands full. But regardless of what's going and what's working going into this game is about one thing. It's about raw emotion. It's about who's going to be able to get up for this game, who's going to be able to outfight the next guy, and it's going to be a battle of will. And so you could throw away the records, you could throw away what's been done to this point, and now it's going to be my hope that our team could finally get up and use emotion as an edge in this game, because that's what needs to happen. This game is as fun as it gets when you play college football. It's an interstate rivalry that I don't think a lot of people outside the area understand, but it's just as big as the Ohio State game. I'm not going to say it's bigger than the Ohio State game, but in the realm here, this is a big, big rivalry game. And these are the games. This is why you sign up to go to the University of Michigan. This is why you play Division I football. You want to play in these type games, and so you gotta be willing to conjure something extra. Now, for their offense, the Michigan State's offense struggles too. So I think our defense will be able to match up well with that offense. But as I heard this morning, it seems like Michigan State just always plays their best against Michigan, and we'll see what happens. But this is the kind of game you want to play in, Mike. Trust me, it's what it's all about.
Well, and as you remember well, Greg, from playing in this game, it's going to be one physical affair, isn't it?
Oh, there's no doubt. In fact, Michigan State pretty much ruined our shot at a national title the one year. I want to say maybe it was the 90 year when we tied for the Big Ten championship. It was the only year that we did tie in my 4 years starting. Other 3 years we won outright, but we had been ranked. We finally ranked number 1 in the country, and Michigan State's coming into our stadium. And we have a back-and-forth battle, and finally we tied. We're seemingly ready to tie the game late. We score, I believe, Desmond Howard scored on a kickoff return late in the game, and it was just back and forth. And Gary Moeller was the coach, and he asked us, do we want to go for 2? Because then they didn't have a two-point conversion, or they didn't have overtime. And he asked us if he wanted to go 2-point conversion to win the game. And we all said yes. And then Desmond ran pretty much a skinny post in the end zone. He got interfered with. That wasn't called. He tripped him right before he caught the ball. He caught the ball for a second, then he dropped it. I had thought as a tackle there that we scored, we won the game, and we didn't. And the following week we would end up losing to Iowa by a point because we missed an early extra point. And so back-to-back weeks started by the Michigan State game. We lost by 1 point and 1 point. And it ruined our chances of going to the Rose Bowl, and quite frankly, ruined our chance at continuing to be the number 1 team in the country in a possible national championship. So this game is a big game. And the other 3 years, we won. And so, but you know what? The one I remember is the one we lost because we were ranked number 1 team in the country.
Well, always a big game. And I remember what Bobby Ufer used to say when it's such a big game for Michigan State. And he said, I have never seen a team get more mileage out of one win than Michigan State does when they beat us. It's incredible.
It is incredible. And again, we go through expectations, and we expect to win every game we play, and that's just the way it is. But I tell you what, the hardest thing for players at Michigan is losing to Michigan State because they ride that the whole year, and they ride it and they ride it, and for some reason, and Mike Hart said upset them when he talked about the stepbrother thing, and that ticked them off even more, and then just ride it and they ride it, and so. It's time for us to make a statement. And, if Michigan program and Brady and the boys want to make a statement, this is the time. You got to beat Michigan State.
Well, you got it. Well, Greg, Coach Hoke always says it's not a successful season if we don't win the Big Ten championship. That is our goal. And we know anything's possible. We've watched this team through 7 games now. But do you think that this team has what it takes to win each of these last 5 games and maybe end up in the Big Ten championship game?
I still think they have the chance of doing that. Yeah, I'm very confident that they could play with anybody in the conference. It's kind of an enigma. They play so well against Notre Dame, and then they've struggled against some teams that aren't as good. But the bottom line is they won most of those games. They should have won the Penn State game. There's no doubt in my mind they gave that one away. But they still have a chance to be there right at the end. And Coach Hoke is right. Bottom line, in this program, you come here to win championships, and the Big Ten is the first championship you could win, and then you move on. But he understands that all too well. He understands the tradition here. He understands that tradition has been built on winning the Big Ten championship, and I believe that they can do it. And so they take one game at a time. There's not a team left on the schedule that they can't beat. The question is if they could put all the past behind them, put all the mistakes, put all this, the criticism, the scrutiny behind them, and build off this Indiana game.
Well, the last question for you then, Greg. Michigan fans, we've made it through the Rich Rod years. We were absolutely thrilled when Brady was hired to bring back what we said was Michigan football. At least the kind of football that emphasizes physicality, which is one of Brady's words. with that pro-style attack and a tough defense again. Do you still think Coach Hoke has the program now in its third year on track to once again in the very near future get back to elite status again, or are we expecting again too much too soon?
No, I wholeheartedly have the utmost confidence in Brady Hoke and his staff that they are the right men for the job. In fact, I think they're very good coaches. They have a plethora of football knowledge. I think in many aspects we're spoiled because they are such good coaches. Unfortunately, the Rich Rod thing happened, and he just wasn't a fit. And he's a decent coach in his own right, but he just didn't fit here at Michigan. But Brady Hoke fits. Let me tell you something. This Michigan is a special place. And what does it tell you when a man from Columbus, Ohio, his dream job is to take over Michigan? It's almost as if, something greater is happening here. And if you watch him in practice or if you see him in the game, you hear his comments, he understands the tradition. If you're a football coach, a head football coach here, and you don't understand the tradition here that has been built for 100 and some years since we started playing, then you're going to struggle. But if you understand that tradition, you put everything into perspective, and you let that tradition work for you, good things are going to happen. And he understands that completely. I think his staff has done a wonderful job. I think everything's coming. Maybe it's a little slower than people expect. I know, again, I hear the criticism myself, and I think it's unfair in many ways. But again, this is Michigan, and we expect a lot, and so some bad things are going to be said. But I have every reason to believe that this program is heading in the right direction. I think the kids, especially, the guys who have been here a long time, have really bought in and understand Brady's philosophy. I think the younger kids are in for a treat because I see nothing but good things happening, and I hope it gets started with a big win against Michigan State. Really in the right direction. If we beat Michigan State, then, like I said, that's a statement win, and a lot of the criticism will be quelled. So we'll have to wait and see. But regardless, I think Coach Hoke and his staff have done a great job, and I look forward to what we're going to do in the future.
And I'm on board with you there, Greg. Our guest today on our Michigan Game Day segment here during the bye week has been Michigan great Greg Skrepenak. And as always, Greg, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, and we'll get you back on before the end of the season and get some more of your thoughts on this team.
Well, Mike, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for affording me the opportunity to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart, Michigan football, and go Blue.
Go Blue, Greg. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Stay tuned for Wolverine Quick Hits as we wrap it up for another week here on the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine. On Wolverine Quick Hits, Coach Hoke said at his Monday presser this week he'd like to see the same offense show up against the Spartans a week from Saturday, but he also wants to see a much better defensive effort. As he said, you can't compete with any of the remaining 5 teams left on the schedule or for a Big Ten championship if you play defense like that. On the injury front, offensive guard Joey Brzezinski was lost for the season with an ACL tear in the Indiana game. We all saw him come off early in the first quarter on Saturday. He'll be replaced most likely by true freshman Kyle Bosch, who was solid in almost 3/4 of action against the Hoosiers. Other than that, the team is in good shape at this point of the season. Hoke said he thinks he's found his best 5 linemen for right now: Lewan, Bosch, Glasgow, Magnuson, and Schofield. We'll certainly find out if he's right during the next 5 weeks. With the home stretch of the Big Ten season upon us, you'll need your daily fix of Michigan football. There is no better place to get it than right here at GBM Wolverine. Visit www.gbmwolverine.com and become a member today. We have player profiles, recruiting news, our lively message board, plenty of chatter about this season, and the always popular Monday Night Live chat with all of our talented writers here at GBM Wolverine. So don't delay. Visit www.gbmwolverine.com and join today. Make sure you're in the Wolverine loop this November. Don't forget our show app is now available from a variety of sources. For Android users, we're in the Market Store at Amazon.com. For Apple devices, our app is available in the iTunes Store. Another great way to tune us in for free is with the TuneIn Radio app. You can also hear the show on Stitcher Radio on demand. Download the free app today at www.stitcher.com. And if you get the show from iTunes, which many of you do, please take a minute or two to write a short review about the show or just say something. It really does help us a lot. Our phone lines are open 24/7, and we would love to hear from you. Give us a call at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Just tell us who you are, where you're calling from, and then give us your maize and blue thoughts. You can also email your opinions to the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. That's the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. So give us a shout anytime. Thanks again to my guest today, Michigan great Greg Skrepenak. I hope you enjoyed hearing what he had to say, and we will certainly have him back later in the season. Next week, it's a back-to-work day in the state of Michigan, Michigan versus Michigan State. It will be one physical affair, as it always is, and should give us an indication of what we can expect from this Michigan team down the home stretch. My guests next week will be Will Tieman from the Spartan Sports Network. Will is the pre- and post-game host on the network and the host of the radio program Inside the Huddle with Mark D'Antonio. We'll also be joined by Michigan beat writer Mark Snyder from the Detroit Free Press. So enjoy the bye week, watch a lot of football, and get ready for what should be, we hope, an interesting November from this young Michigan team. Have a wonderful Wolverine week, everyone. Until next time, I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Take care, and as always, go blue. Thanks for listening to the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. You can find us on the web at www.gbmwolverine.com. That's www.gbmwolverine.com. For audio posts or other fan feedback, please call our listener line at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Email fan feedback to the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. That's the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan. The Michigan Man Podcast is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue.